You guys,
in any manner for the purpose of
that just made me jump. So, hi everybody, it's Audrey, and welcome back to Chapter and Converse, and welcome to another round of books I have read recently. If you saw my last recent reads, then you will know that my book slump has lifted, at least slightly, I would say. I have been enjoying books. I have been prioritizing books. I have been in the mood to read books. I have struggled big time over the summer, and I feel like I've turned a corner, turned a page, turned all the things, and I have some fantastic books to talk about today. So we are talking 4 thrillers, all new releases that I gobbled up, and I loved them all. So you don't need to know anything else. Loved them all. See you next time. No, let's get into it. The first book I have was sent to me by Minotaur, and this is The Mysterious Case of the Missing Crime Writer by Ragnar Jonasson. I love a Ragnar Jonasson book, big time. I discovered him a few years ago, He was put on my radar a few years ago, courtesy of Abby from Crime by the Book, and I have started to make a small dent in his very prolific backlist. But this is his newest book. This comes out September 9th, depending on when you see this video. I feel like this will be out by the time you guys see it. And this was such a fast bingeable read. I read this in 2 days, totally invested, absolutely loved it. So one of the things I love about him, so he does have 2 separate series, but he also has standalones, but characters from different standalones will appear, characters from standalones and series will appear in his other books. So it's one of those Easter egg Jennifer Hillier things, I feel like, where when it comes to a standalones, you don't have to have read any other books to dive right in. But if you happen to have read other books, it just makes it a little bit more fun because you're just picking up on stuff that somebody else wouldn't have picked up on. So in this one, we are following Helgi, and Helgi made an appearance in The Sanatorium, Death at the Sanatorium, and then The Darkness. Is that right? Hold on. Darkness. Let me check. The Darkness is the correct book. So that is the first book in the Holda series. I don't know if Helgi is mentioned by name in that, but anyway, there's a nice thread that goes through the books. But you can read this as a complete standalone. You don't need to know anything else. And just dive on in. Just diving in. It's a great book. So, books about writers, absolutely love. Multiple timelines. One of the things that Ragnar Jonasson, I find, does a fantastic job at is weaving together a story, not always in a linear fashion, and he will introduce characters, kind of reminds me of Magpie Murders by Anthony Horowitz, where you meet a character at the beginning, then you jump into a whole different story, and then the character comes back at the end. So I feel like he doesn't always, are there any rules in writing? I feel like he makes his own rules and creates just very unique stories and very unique storytelling. So there are 4 different timelines, I want to say, in this one. Not at all hard to follow along. But the core storyline, which takes place in 2012, which is present day in this book, is Helgi, who is an investigator, winds up getting called in because Aylin is a famous writer and she has gone missing. So she is the crime writer who has mysteriously gone missing. So he returns to Reykjavik to try and figure out what happened. He's kind of called back. And we get a good mix of personal life and professional, and we get to see him work through the investigation of what happened. And then we get a timeline from 2005, which is all done in interview transcript, which is an interview that Aylin did as an author. So she wrote, basically her plan was to write 10 books and then she was out. So she had written her 10 books, hugely successful. Everybody wanted more from her, but she was just I had a plan to write 10 and I did it and now I'm good. So there's an interview with her from 10 years ago, sort of explaining her history, her career, where she is in 2005. And then we get some past timelines from 1975. Or 1976. I feel like it goes 75, 76. Is it just 76? 1976. And then I want to say there's also a 1965 timeline. Let's just call it mid-60s. And we get some cases that wind up resurfacing. I'm making this sound much more complicated than it is. But we get multiple timelines. We get multiple characters through different timelines and multiple mysteries. And then we get to see how it all comes together in the end. I loved it. I thought it was so clever. There were things from Death in the Sanatorium that are referenced in here. So again, if you read that book, there's a little something extra for you, but you don't have to have read it because he will give you the little nugget of grounding that you need to understand one element. And I just thought it was fantastic. So I'm like looking at my notes at the same time. I'm like, am I missing anything that I can say that isn't going to give anything away? I feel like probably not, because I do like to make notes. I did, back it up, girl. I did a mix of physically reading this and the audiobook. So I did get an audiobook arc from Macmillan. Let me tell you who read that. It was really good. One of the things I love about an audiobook of a translated book. So this was translated from Icelandic by, you would think I'd have it together, but no such luck. This was translated by Victoria Cribb. I am the queen of not knowing how to pronounce anything. So one of my favorite things about reading or listening to a book that was translated from Icelandic from a different language is getting the names correct and getting the places correct, because in my brain I could never sort out what was what. So this is,
let me see, who is the narrator?
This was narrated by Cicely, Whitehead, Jane Slavin, and Rufus Wright. So I will say in particular, the audiobook narration of the interview transcripts are great because you're getting both POVs on it, and it has like that like tinny like tape recorder sound to it like it's supposed to, so it sounds like you're listening to the recording of the interview, and I thought it was fantastic. But great twists. He loves a little bit of a shock, and I just loved it so much. So I highly recommend him if you're not already reading him. The Holda series is fantastic. I started to read the second series. I don't know what it's called. I'll put it down below, like the proper name of it. And then I have a handful of his standalones still to read. So he's a great one. He's also a great seasonal reader in that it's just cold and icy. So can't recommend him enough. This was fantastic. The next book I read, I fear, might be a bit of a controversial, unpopular opinion. So in the first video, I talked about The Ghostwriter, which was gorgeous. This was probably my second most beautiful book. Does anybody know what it is yet? It's Ruth Ware. It is The Woman in Suite 11. And I know a lot of people, too, who wound up DNFing this book. And it scared me because it's two people that I trust implicitly. And I was like, oh man, because I was really jazzed to go into this. So if you guys watched a previous video, you know I reread The Woman in Cabin 10 in anticipation of this book. I did the audiobook of this, loved it. I really enjoyed this book the first time around, but I talked about how I had a little bit of probably an overly judgmental spin on it because it was not in a dark wood, which I absolutely loved. But second time around, I feel like I appreciated, still loved the things I loved, but appreciated it in a different way and really got me in the mood for Cabin 11, Suite 11, Cabin 10, Suite 11. And I was very, very jazzed for it, and I got very, very scared when I heard people weren't liking it. So two things I'm going to tell you. I listened to the audiobook of it. I put myself on the wait list at the library, and it popped like that. It was an audiobook list of like, it's gonna be 9 weeks. There's 67 people ahead of you on the list, like whatever the heck it is. And I guess everybody was just real busy because it came to me very quickly and I just jumped on it. Imogen Church does the audiobook narration of it. She has narrated a lot, if not all, of Ruth Ware's books, and I think she is incredible. And I definitely think that helped keep me engaged in the book. I had just started going on walks again because the weather turned. I was enjoying having something fun to listen to. I was absolutely in my sweet spot of these characters. So we do get a bunch of repeat characters from Cabin 10 in this book, which was super fun. And I think the audiobook narration is what kept me going. So I think it takes like a similar, this is bigger than Cabin 10, but I feel like it takes the same amount of setup time to get us to a point, the same way it did in Cabin 10, which I was kind of prepared for. This is a slower burn. This is not high octane action. This is definitely more character driven. I do think it got a little thick in the middle and we could have moved some stuff along a bit, but ultimately I very much enjoyed this book. I was invested in the characters. I wanted to know what was going to happen. I had some similar fears and reservations that our character had. There's definitely some winks and nods to Cabin 10. I believe you have to read Cabin 10 before you read this one, or it's just not going to land the same way. And things that take on meaning in this book won't mean anything. I don't know how this reads if you haven't read the first book, but I really feel like you need to read the first book to understand the dynamics between the characters, to understand what everyone is bringing to the table in this book. So this book, if you haven't read Cabin 10, I'm just going to give you like a super vague description of this one. So Lo was a travel journalist in book number 1. She winds up taking her boss's spot to go on this luxury cruise liner to write a travel review of it. And she believes she witnesses a woman getting tossed overboard. And when she reports it, that the woman in Cabin 10 has gone overboard and she saw, heard the splash, saw her hit the water. Everybody is like, there was nobody in Cabin 10. Like the guy who was supposed to come to Cabin 10 wound up not attending, so the cabin was empty. So, well, I don't think you saw what you think you saw. And in this book, she has moved on. It's like 10 years later, I want to say. Yes, it is 10 years later. She's living in New York City, and she winds up getting an invitation to this luxury Swiss hotel. And she's been looking for work. She's had a couple children. She's taken some time off. So she's looking to get back into the workforce. And this is a perfect opportunity for her to write a new travel story. So she accepts the invitation, which is where some of the people from the first book are also attending, because I guess the travel industry is very, very tiny. And that's kind of where things start to happen for her. So we don't stay in Switzerland the entire time. She winds up going to London, and things just start to happen. So I feel like any other plot points, I think, are just going to kind of ruin a little bit of something. But there's an ultra rich guy who runs the Swiss hotel, and she wants to meet with him, and she winds up meeting his mistress instead, and that changes everything. So it says, Lo is forced to ask herself just how much she's willing to sacrifice to save this woman, and if she can even trust her. So poor Lo just has worst luck ever and winds up getting ensnared in these really dark and messed up situations. But I liked it. I think it's a mood. I think you've got to be in the mood for something slow, just slow burn, slow reveals. There are action moments to it, but I highly recommend the audiobook, and I liked it. I'm a huge Ruth Ware fan. I have read everything except 0 Days, which I just haven't gotten to it yet. I have it. I'm not reading it for any reason. And I'm just a big fan of her work. So I'm probably a little bit biased, but I understand why people put it down. I think if I was physically reading it, I might have put it down. But listening to it totally kept me engaged. So that's my 2 cents. I do think it's worth the read, but do you need to drop what you're doing to read it? Maybe not. Be in the mood for it, and then let me know. Let me know if anybody else has tried to read it and hasn't had success with it. It always hurts my heart when a book doesn't work for other people, but I totally understand why it didn't. And these are like diehard, at least one of them, like a diehard Ruth Ware fan like I am. So anyway, there you go. A book that was not slow and that I did not have a problem physically reading. I have High Season by Katie Bishop, and this was sent to me by St. Martin's. So this came out end of August, I want to say. I read it before it came out, and I really enjoyed this. So I read her first book, which came out last year, Girls of Summer, which I loved. It's sort of like, it was like a dark, kind of like a toxic female friendship, very atmospheric, very past and present timelines, past and present mysteries, living with some trauma that you're carrying over from what you did in the past. And I really, really loved it. So I was very excited to get this. And I have to say, I'm a huge fan of Katie Bishop's writing. She does great atmosphere. This was a fantastic dark and messed up group of people again, rich people behaving badly, and we have a past and present mystery that we need to figure out. In this one, we are in the south of France, where I want to say we're on Côte d'Azur, and it is this gorgeous, known as the Pink House family mansion with a huge pool and rich people behaving badly and sort of a very local legend kind of a house. So this beautiful house that's on the cover. So in the past, 20 years ago, past timeline, we have 17-year-old Tamara Drayton, found face down in the pool of her family's idyllic mansion. And her twin brother, Golden Boy Blake, has to pick up the pieces of their shattered family. So they also have a younger sister named Nina, who was 6 years old at the time. And Nina wound up becoming the youngest person to testify in I don't know if it's just a murder trial or a trial, yes, a French murder trial, because she is the only one who saw what happened. And she says she saw her babysitter, Josie, drown Tamara in the pool. So Josie winds up going to prison. So when the book picks up in present day, Josie is released from prison, and because there's a thing that makes her return, even though she has avoided going back to the south of France, she winds up getting pulled back home, and they wind up all sort of being in the same place at the same time. So in present day, we have a true crime documentary being made, and they are eager to talk to everyone who was involved at the time. And everyone is obviously hesitant to kind of dig up things from the past and to revisit that time. But Josie has always maintained her innocence, and she is really caught between, you know, do I try to defend myself? Do I try to figure out what happened in the past? Do I have to relive these moments? Because if Josie didn't do it, who did? And what happened all those years ago? So we wind up getting multiple POVs. We get Josie, we get Nina in present day. Nina is having a lot of like doubt and conflict about what happened. She's getting peppered by the documentarians to be a part of this. Her family is telling her to just leave it alone, like don't even engage in it. And then we also get Tamara's POV from 20 years ago, which is great because I feel like a lot of times in books, you'll have somebody who died, but you don't always get their perspective. So we really get to know Tamara throughout this book, which I really liked. And then we also have a true crime. I'm like, what is the name of her true crime blog? It is like the pitch perfect true crime girlies. Like, let's go, let's get her done. Let's look into this. So she is True Crime Fangirl 2002. And I wound up doing a combination also of listening to this and reading this. And the audiobook narration of True Crime Fangirl is so perfect. I loved it. And you really get caught in with the way she's talking about this, because she's not like news reporting on it. It's definitely like a pop culture true crime podcast. And it was really, really well done. So I thought this book was great. It brings together some super strong women, brings together a lot of questions about what happened. It becomes, you know, how much can you trust your memory? And kind of the lengths you will go to cover up dark and messed up things in the past. And there's a lot of people who have a lot to lose, and there's a lot to fight for these people. So we start to see what happens as, you know, things start to unravel and truths start to come out. And there's a real, you know, rich people behaving badly versus Josie, who was their nanny, who is not from a super wealthy family. So you get to see a lot about the Draytons in the past and just how much power they had and how much attention they commanded for just being who they were. It's really good. It's really good. So let me tell you who read the audiobook. This was read by Alix Dunmore. And again, the audiobook narration was absolutely fantastic. So just looking at other things that Alix did, she was one of the narrators in None of This Is True by Lisa Jewell. You guys have read that one, but she has a laundry list of books that she has read, and I thought she was fantastic. So highly recommend this book. Katie Bishop is definitely an author you should not be missing. And I know it's not technically, I mean, it is technically summer, but in my mind it's not technically summer. But if you want to just escape to perfect summers, this is a great summertime book too. But you can read it any season, high season, all seasons. And then the last book I want to talk about today is Forget Me Not by Stacy Willingham. I also had an e-arc and an audio arc of this one. So thank you Minotaur, thank you Macmillan Audio. I was definitely super spoiled. And I did a combination of listening and reading to this one as well. So the audiobook narrators were Helen Laser and Karissa Vacker. And I was going to say my copy is in the mail. As of the time of me filming this, Stacy Willingham has not yet done her event at Murder by the Book, but my copy will be in the mail next week. So I'm very excited to have this for my collection. I have to say, probably one of my favorite covers of hers. I don't know. I love Flicker in the Dark, but I feel like this cover in particular is just absolutely gorgeous. And I loved this book. So dare I say, this might be my second favorite of hers. Flicker in the Dark is still my favorite, but I feel like this might be my second favorite of her books. And this was one where I feel like the synopsis of it, I feel like I like bumbled my way through it, and obviously having read it, I feel like I have a much better sense of what the book is about, where I feel like the blurb didn't quite give me everything. Or maybe it just made more sense once I started reading the book. So we are following Claire Campbell. She is our main character in this book. We also get multiple timelines in this story. I mean, things I love, you guys, you know. So 22 years ago, her older sister Natalie disappeared. Natalie was only 18 years old, and a bloody t-shirt of hers was found in a car of a man who wound up being convicted for her murder. And he vehemently denied having anything to do with it. There was no other evidence. There was no other leads. And Natalie was never found. So this has always been something that's been hanging over Claire and her family. So when the book opens, nothing like dropping your phone. All good, all good. Hey. If you guys are having fun with the chaos, just a quick PSA. If you have not already subscribed and you would like to, please feel free to subscribe. If you feel like liking the video, that's great too. Share with all your friends to watch Audrey chaotically talk about books and drop her phone all over the place. Okay, let me talk about what the book's about some more. In present day, Claire is living in New York City. She has basically fled South Carolina the minute she could get out of there. She was Natalie's younger sister, and she winds up getting a call from her dad. Her mom needs some help. She has hurt her, I don't know if she hurt her knee or her ankle. Basically, her mom is struggling a little bit. Her parents are divorced, but her dad asks her to come home to help. So Claire does. And kind of as soon as she gets there, her mom is like, go away. Like, I don't need help. Why are you here? Haven't seen you in years. You don't need to be here. But during the 24 hours that Claire is in her childhood home, she can't help but go to her sister's room, which hasn't changed in 22 years, and starts looking through Natalie's things. And she winds up finding a shoebox of old photos and an old roll of film and old memories from that last summer. And she starts to question, again, what happened to her sister. And one of the things her sister was doing that summer, other than dating a mysterious older man that nobody knew about, is she was working at this vineyard, Galloway, and it is a muscadine vineyard in coastal South Carolina, less than an hour from where Claire grew up. And with her mother basically saying, go away, Claire not being able to return to New York City because she has sublet her apartment, she winds up going to Galloway to try and, you know, just get closer to where Natalie was and where she spent some of her final days that summer. And it's a weird twist of fate. They are looking for somebody to work there. And Claire winds up taking this summer job, basically helping out at this vineyard, which certainly isn't what it was in its heyday. Now it's basically the owner, his wife, and this other man who work there. And all the summertime help, they just don't hire them anymore because they can't afford to. So she winds up moving in. There's a cabin for her to live in. She is happy to escape from her mom. She can't go back to New York, and she gets to be in the last place her sister, you know, spent a lot of time. And she is in her, I feel like I'm just making this as confusing as the original one. While Claire is in her cabin the first night, she winds up finding a diary from 40 years ago and is reading the words of this girl. And she starts to impose all of her feelings about Natalie onto this woman and becomes very fixated and obsessed with trying to figure out what happened to her sister. So as you can guess, Claire is going to get herself into some trouble, and she's going to turn over some rocks people don't want turned over, and she's going to do whatever it takes to find out what happened. So we wind up getting the past timeline of the diary, which I loved. This was not a case of Audrey did not enjoy the past timeline. I love a found diary. It will forever remind me of that 90210 episode where Brenda finds the diary in her window seat, which made me always want to have a window seat, from the late 60s, from that woman Wendy who lived in their house when she was growing up, and they retell the entire episode as if Brenda's Wendy and Brandon was the brother from back then. I don't know. Let me know if you've seen that episode of 90210. One of my favorites of all time. But I love a found diary. I love past secrets. And I had a really great time with this book. So it absolutely goes dark. It's absolutely messed up. There were twists that I didn't see coming, but in hindsight, the breadcrumbs were there the entire time. She totally plays fair. And I was very invested in this book and wanted to know what was going to happen. I thought it was clever. I thought it was well done. I was watching, I don't know if I was watching or reading an interview with her after I read it, where she talked about how hard this book was to write. And there were moments where like she was like wanted to give up on it. This, like the solace I take in hearing authors that I love who've written incredible books have those exact same moments of doubt and fear and burn it all down that I have just makes me feel so much better as a human, because this is Audrey's insecurity sidebar. It is hard not to read a final copy of anybody's book and having no concept of how much work. I mean, like, I know how much work went into it, but like having no idea what that was from the original draft. But anyway, just hearing Stacy talk about it, I loved. Her and Ashley Winstead just did an event together at Poison Pen, which I'm absolutely going to tune into because they posted on YouTube. If it's available, it will be available. It should be available by the time this video goes up. I'll post it down below if anybody else is interested. But anyway, I just love this book tremendously. I'm a huge Stacy Willingham fan. Like I said, I've read all of her books and I think this is my second favorite. So highly recommend it. Do not let my bumbling through the synopsis turn you out from it. It's great. It's absolutely great. And I love when you hit that point in the book where cover art starts to make sense. I just love it. I absolutely love it. So good. So good. So that's going to do it. 4 books, 4 new releases. Very grateful to Minotaur and St. Martin's for sending me those ARCs, to Macmillan Audio, and to Imogen Church for narrating the heck out of every book that she narrates. So it was good. It was good. All right. So feeling very good. Back in a bit of a thriller mode. And you guys, we're getting into the season. So 'tis the season of dark academia and spooky, and it's all thrillers. We're going to see what's going to happen. But let me know what you guys have read lately. Have you read any of these? Where are you at? If you're force ranking a Stacy Willingham book, I don't know. Tell me all the things. I think when I get her book in the mail, maybe I'll do just a Stacy video and dig a little bit deeper. But that's a story for another day. So until then, take care, everybody. Thanks for being here. Bye.